Hey, so hi and welcome to how to reduce your AI symptoms and have more energy in 3 weeks. I'm very excited for this. It is my first webinar, and so I'm so happy that you're here with me for this. And I'm also going to thank you in advance for bearing with me as I figure out all the technology around this. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides with you. So I'm going to share my screen just one moment here. And bring up my slides. And there we go. Okay, and I want to, just one moment here. Okay, so can you guys all see my slides there? Excellent. Okay. So welcome to how to reduce your AI symptoms and have more energy in 3 weeks. I am going to just do one thing here again. My apologies for the technology. I'm just getting comfortable with this. There we go. Okay. So how to reduce your AI symptoms and have more energy in 3 weeks. Simple steps to balancing your immune system. And I'm excited to be doing this right now. It's December, of course, and this is a time when there's a lot of joy around, but it also can be a time of quite a bit of stress. And so it's really important during this time in particular to be doing what we can to support our immune systems. And so before I get into it, I want to let you know a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. So I'm Vanessa Sorensen, registered holistic nutritionist and health coach. I specialize in helping people with autoimmune conditions build long-term changes into their lives so they feel more confident that they are doing what they can to balance their immune systems and have more energy to get back to the things that they love to do. With my training as a holistic nutritionist and my personal experience living with multiple sclerosis and thriving, my goal now is to educate and support others to do the same. And about 5 years ago, I started having a series of odd neurological symptoms, and after literally dozens of tests and specialist visits, I was told I probably have MS. And if any of you out there maybe can relate to when you have an autoimmune condition, it's often a bumpy road to getting a diagnosis. So after being told that there was nothing I could do about it by my neurologist, and frankly refusing to accept that, I started looking into nutrition and lifestyle changes that I could make and things I could do to at least slow, if not stop, the progression of this disease. I came across the Overcoming Multiple Sclerosis plan, diet and lifestyle plan, and I went from eating a pretty standard North American diet to a pesca vegan diet pretty much overnight. And during this time, I also read everything I could about multiple sclerosis and nutrition and autoimmune conditions and nutrition and lifestyle. And I realized this passion that I had and this wonder with the way in which we can take control of our health and wellness and the impact that we can have for ourselves. And so I went back to school and graduated from the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition as a registered holistic nutritionist. I then went on to discover for myself that while the OMS, the Overcoming MS plan, was taking my health to a certain level, I wanted to be even better. And that's what made me realize that there really is no one size fits all approach to autoimmune wellness. And so I started experimenting with other diets and with other protocols, and eventually found for me what does work best. And so now I work with men and women like you to help them find their own autoimmune protocols so that they can get back into balance and have more energy and get back to the things that they love. And yeah, and one other thing is that it's important to know that you can really do this. Like if I can do it, you can do it. I grew up in a household where quite regularly we would eat like instant food, and often in front of the TV. And it was a really busy household, and that's kind of how it went. And before my diagnosis, one of my favorite things to eat for lunch was grilled cheese sandwiches. So if I can go from that to where I am now, I know that you can do it too. So what we'll cover today, we are going to talk about the real reason your autoimmune symptoms are flaring, and how what you are eating can make all the difference. We'll go through a simple plan to get you feeling better, having more energy before the new year. And I'll share with you my favorite strategy for reducing your stress in 5 minutes. And this is important because stress has a huge impact on the immune system. And finally, we'll talk about an essential step to autoimmune wellness that's often overlooked. So the reason why I'm going to start with the real reason your autoimmune symptoms are flaring is because it's all well and good for us to talk about a plan, but I think it's really important to understand what's behind the plan, because it's easier to stick to something, to stick to a protocol, if you understand the mechanisms for why it's working for you and for why it's going to make a difference in your life. So, why are your symptoms flaring? As you probably know, autoimmune conditions are very complicated, not terribly well understood, but there are a few things that clinicians are observing over and over again. And one of those things is intestinal permeability, or AKA leaky gut, which I don't love the name of because I think it's just kind of funny. I like intestinal permeability. But what is it? So the gastrointestinal lining does need to be a little bit permeable because it needs to be able to allow nutrients in the foods that we eat to be absorbed into the blood. But it can't be too permeable because then, because it needs to act as a barrier to toxins, right? So intestinal permeability is when the intestinal lining is more permeable than normal, and it's allowing particles, bacteria, and other organisms or their toxins into the bloodstreams and then onto other parts of the body. When the intestines are failing to do their job, adverse immune reactions can develop. So autoimmune diseases are one of those things that can happen, can flare because of leaky gut allowing these toxins and these other things into the bloodstream. And that's why you'll see that, or you'll find that many autoimmune protocols begin, or I should say, the holistic approaches to autoimmune protocols begin with a focus on repairing the gut. And it's important to know that one of the reasons why the gut can become more permeable it can be because they are irritated or inflamed. And that brings us to the next part of this reason why your AI symptoms are flaring, and that is inflammation. So what is inflammation? It is, at its base, it's an immune response to injury, toxins, allergy, or infection, and it's causing its characteristic pain, redness, heat, and swelling in the infected area. Now, inflammation kind of gets a bad rap, I'd say. Not all inflammation is bad. In fact, inflammation is important. It's essential to healing. It's when you sprain your ankle or cut your finger, the swelling, redness, heat, and inflamed nerve endings send signals to the rest of your body that something is wrong, so that your body can then send the necessary cells to fix the damage in the affected area. So this acute inflammation is essential. It's an essential part of healing. The problem is when that acute inflammation isn't addressed properly and isn't resolved, and this can turn into chronic inflammation. So when the pain and the inflammation doesn't go away, the body continues to overreact long after the initial cause, whether it's the cut on your finger, or the sprained ankle. Long after that's gone, the inflammation remains. And it's this chronic inflammation that plays a key role in autoimmune symptoms and flare-up. Now, since a large percentage of your immune system cells are found along the digestive tract, your immune response and overall inflammation can be quite closely linked to what you eat, which is good ultimately, because this means that we can do things to reduce our chronic inflammation every day through the choices we make around eating, lifestyle, and mindset. And this brings us to the plan, which focuses incidentally on these three pillars of nutrition or diet, lifestyle, and mindset. So the first pillar is nutrition. The first step in the nutrition side of things is to remove those foods that are causing you inflammation. Although each of us who has an autoimmune condition is genetically predisposed to experiencing autoimmune flare-ups in a certain part of the body, whether it's the central nervous system or maybe joints or thyroid, whatever it is for you. By reducing inflammation overall, you can decrease the symptoms in that area, and you can also help to give your overworked immune system a bit of a break, effectively supporting its efforts to find balance, because that's ultimately what your immune system is trying to do, and what your body is trying to do is constantly find balance. Now, what foods do we remove? I feel like it's not going to be a terrible surprise here. The list that we have going here. But one thing I want to say in advance is that ultimately you want to remove the foods that your particular body is reacting to. So that's going to be different for everybody. Now, that said, there are certain foods that contribute to inflammation for most people. So that's a great place to start. And where is that? So what are those things? They're the ones listed here. The first thing is gluten. So grains such as wheat, barley, and rye. But these things can also appear in a lot of other things, including say a lot of sauces, prepackaged sausages too, I suppose, and sauces. One is soy sauce. So that's a big one that a lot of people don't realize, but they're really all over gluten, and you have to really check it out and be careful about that. Now, why gluten in particular? Because that can be a question. Not everyone has celiac disease, for example. Well, there's the issue and actually with dairy as well, is this issue of molecular mimicry. So this is when a foreign antigen or something that's causing a reaction shares a sequence or structural similarities with cells that are in the body that are not actually a problem. So things like wheat and dairy, which contain gluten and casein, when they trigger an immune response or a sensitivity response, they look a lot like proteins that are already in the body. And this can trigger the immune system to attack not only the gluten and the casein that have entered through your leaky gut, but also they can end up attacking the body's own cells. So that's when you get that flare in symptoms, in autoimmune symptoms. And so gluten and dairy both have this issue. And then also with dairy, there is the breakdown of casein. So casein is the one of the proteins in dairy, and it can, when it's broken down into its component parts, it also can be pro-inflammatory in itself. Now, I have this cow versus sheep and goat dairy, because the casein is actually slightly different in each of them. And so some people find that although they have a reaction to cow dairy, they don't necessarily have a reaction to sheep and goat dairy, but you can have a reaction to both as well. It's just something to keep in mind. Now, refined grains and processed sugar, that's a little bit different. So there, it's about blood sugar, because refined grains, when the grains are broken down into flour, essentially, they react very similarly to processed sugar, and have a similar reaction to, or a similar impact on your blood sugar levels. And what happens is that when the blood sugar spikes, glucose can build up in the bloodstream and start attaching itself to nearby proteins. And the result is a chemical reaction called glycation, which itself can contribute to inflammation. And then my last point is that ideally for the first 4 weeks of any protocol, one of the best things to do can be to go grain-free completely, because again, the impact that the grains, just as gluten has on leaky gut, it can stress the gut. And while you're trying to repair the leaky gut, you'll want to ideally avoid grains. So that is the what foods to remove. Now, the second aspect of nutrition is adding anti-inflammatory and gut repairing foods. So we've tried to remove those foods that are causing inflammation, and now let's add in foods to help combat the inflammation and help repair the gut. So we've got omega-3 fatty acids. So we can get this from fatty fish, from organic eggs, and from grass-fed meats. And so omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. And for those of us with MS, they have the added bonus of being very supportive for brain health. And then the next one is collagen. So collagen actually makes up 30% of the protein in our body, including things like skin, nails, hair, joints, and intestinal tissue. So by adding collagen, you're really supporting that your body's attempt to repair the gut. You can get this. My number one favorite way of getting collagen is with bone broth. So as you can imagine, when you are preparing the broth for hours and pulling all of that collagen out of the bones of whether it's chicken or beef, what have you, and becomes incredibly nourishing, not only because you're getting the collagen, but also you're getting the other nutrients, the other minerals that are in those bones. So it can be a great source of calcium, for example. Another place to get collagen is in eggs, particularly in the yolk and the membrane. So having an egg white omelet does not count here. You need those yolks. And then also a shout out to salmon and chlorella, because things like that, they don't actually have collagen, but they help support collagen synthesis that's going on in your body. And finally, leafy greens and berries. So these are high in antioxidants, which are going to be anti-inflammatory for you. And they also help to prevent collagen breakdown. So helping to keep the collagen strong in your body and in your gut. Now, we're going to go on to the second pillar, which is lifestyle. So the first thing here is movement. And movement is incredibly important for supporting detoxification. Now, you're already getting in these foods that are anti-inflammatory. You're helping to support your body in that way. But what about all those toxins that are already in your body? What about the inflammation that your body needs to deal with? So you're going to want to support your body to clear it of those things that are no longer supporting your wellness. The movement supports detoxification. It also improves mood and decreases stress, right? So when you are less stressed, when you have less stress in your body, stress can contribute to inflammation. So you have less stress, you have less inflammation. So you're supporting detoxification by getting things moving. You are detoxifying through your lungs, you're detoxifying through your skin when you sweat, you're detoxifying through your bowels because movement supports regularity. And then you're also decreasing your stress through this movement. You're improving your mood, because there is a link also between autoimmune conditions and mood, and that can be a vicious cycle in itself, right? So you are fatigued because of your autoimmune health, and that can bring your mood down, which can contribute to further fatigue, and you're less likely to start moving and all that. So once you start moving, you can help. It helps to improve your mood, have less stress, and help your inflammation. So what do I recommend is 30 minutes, or as much as you can manage. If you're not at 30 minutes yet, that's totally fine. As much as you can manage of moderate movement a day. So I'm not talking about going hardcore and, doing an Ironman or something, but doing something that isn't going to cause your body too much stress again, right? So moderate movement, and find an activity that you enjoy. If you can do that, then you have all that added benefit of increased stress reduction and improved mood because you're having fun at the same time, right? So maybe if you're not one for going, maybe you love going to the gym, so good on you. But maybe it's something else. Maybe you have a regular walk with your partner or your kids or your friends, or maybe you are dancing in your living room, which is one of the things that I like to do. Whatever it is, if you can find an activity you enjoy and move for 30 minutes, then you are going to help your inflammation and your flare-ups for sure. And then the other aspect of lifestyle is stress management. So we've already talked about stress management a bit in terms of movement and how it can help there. But also I want to share with you one of my favorite strategies. And it takes just 5 minutes. And this is about positioning yourself in the present. So to do this, the best thing to do is sit down if you can. So this is when you are finding yourself in a stressful situation. The reason why I talk about positioning yourself in the present is because the first thing you should do is identify what your stressor is, what's the cause of this stress. And more often than not, the vast majority of the time, you're going to realize that it's something that isn't actually immediately present and in front of you. It's often a conversation that you had in the past, whether it's earlier that day, 5 minutes ago, or a week ago. Or it's something, and you keep going over in it in your head, maybe wishing that you had said something differently or reacted differently, or wishing just that it had gone in a different way. Or it's something that hasn't happened yet. So you have a looming deadline and there is anxiety or stress around maybe whether you're going to be able to meet that deadline and what that's going to look like. Either way, these things aren't happening right now. And that's the key. So what you need to do is get your head out of wherever that thing is, whether the cause of your stress is in the past or in the future. Get your head out of that place and put it into the present, because then because the threat isn't in the present. So as long as you are in the present, then your threat can't reach you. I hope that makes sense. So in order to do this, in order to get yourself in the present and away from that threat that is causing you this stress reaction that is contributing to your inflammation, I'm going to share with you this simple 5-minute strategy. So like I said, first thing to do is, if you're in a position to do this, sit down. Ideally, you're outside because then you're also getting fresh air. But if not, really, you can do this wherever you are in that moment. And you realize that you are feeling stressed, that you're feeling anxious, and you acknowledge it and implement this strategy. So first, take a deep breath. And then I want you to focus on observing your immediate presence. Start by looking at something. So ask yourself, what do you see? And choose one thing to focus on. Notice, maybe you're outside, so maybe there are some leaves on a tree, although probably not this time of year, depending on where you live. But you notice a particular color on a particular color of paint on a particular building, and you notice where it's chipping. You notice how the sunlight is reflecting off of that color and how it looks different on one side of the surface than on another, depending on where the light hits. Just focus and look and notice the minutia of what you can see immediately in front of you. And then turn to what you hear. Take a moment to pause and listen. And perhaps you hear the sound of a car driving by, maybe a block away from you. Maybe you hear people chatting in down the hallway or in the office next to you. Perhaps you can hear the hum of a heater or a refrigerator. Just notice what you hear in that moment. Then move to noticing what you feel. Perhaps you feel some tension in your shoulder. Perhaps you feel the weight of the very light weight of the fabric of your shirt on your arm. You can feel the surface, the pressure that the floor places on your foot as you stand. These kinds of things. So focus on the immediate feelings that you are experiencing, and cycle through your different senses that way. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. It maybe even will take less, but you'll find that through doing that process, you bring yourself into the present. You'll find that your heart rate starts to come down a bit, that your anxiety should start to diffuse a little bit. And you can keep that, and you can keep doing that until you are at the place where you are separated from that stress, where you are in the present, and that stress is either in the past or the future, wherever it is, but you know that it's not right now. And so this exercise allows your parasympathetic nervous system to kick in, and that's really the opposite of your fight or flight system. And it helps to balance your body's stress response, bringing it back into line with the actual threat that is right in front of you and that you're facing. So helping to reduce inflammation in the process. Now, the second point under stress management, which I think is also very helpful and has shown to be really helpful with a lot of people that I work with, is asking yourself a simple question. Well, I say it's simple, but it might not be so simple when you're answering it. And that is, what in my life is draining me? So it's simple, but it really asks you to dig deep. But by looking at that, it's not necessarily going to, in and of itself, help you manage your stress, but it will allow you to identify those things that may be draining you, and then ask yourself whether those are things that you can do something about. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But asking the question can be a very powerful place to start. So that's the second pillar, lifestyle. For the third pillar we're going to go on to is mindset, which is a key to success. So this is the aspect of autoimmune wellness that I find is often overlooked. Oftentimes when our symptoms get bad, we can feel like there's no way that they're going to get better, that this is it, that I have this particular condition, and I'm just going to have to live with it. I've talked to a lot of people who tell me that they report that their energy is maybe a 5 out of 10. And they believe that this is just the way it's going to be. And that's like on a good day. And that's just how it's going to be because they have MS or Hashimoto's or whatever, ankylosing spondylitis, whatever it is that you have. And that's just often not the case. However, me saying it isn't going to do much good. You need to believe it. You need to believe it in order to see it. So you need to believe that you can have that change before you'll actually see the change. The mind is a very powerful tool. We have the ability to rewrite our neural pathways. But to do this, we have to build that mindset muscle. And so this means having a daily practice. And the daily practice could look a lot of different ways. A couple of suggestions that I have are, one is to have an affirmation. So maybe every day you can repeat to yourself something like, every day I am healthier, happier, and stronger. And you can bring this into your day throughout the day. Every day I am healthier, happier, and stronger. Or if affirmations aren't for you, maybe it's visualization. So maybe every day you take 5 minutes to visualize yourself in that place that you want to be. And maybe right now you don't know that you can be there, but through regular practice of visualization, that's when you can build that muscle, that belief muscle, so that eventually you are believing that you can be there. And then you are just that much closer to achieving it. So maybe you're visualizing playing with your kids or the kids in your family, and feeling joy with that, and feeling energy and energized by it. And you see yourself not losing patience. Or maybe you see yourself dancing with your spouse, full of joy and energy again. Or maybe you're out with friends for an evening celebration, or just having dinner and feeling good about it, and not totally, and you're feeling energy even though it's after 8 p.m. Whatever approach you take, whether you are doing affirmations or you're doing visualization, making this a daily practice is the key. So finally, getting clear on your why. This is also huge. It's one of the biggest things you can do to help you stick to a plan, because if you're not clear on your why, then it's harder to actually do the things you need to do when they get uncomfortable, right? So always keeping in mind why you're doing it. Maybe you're doing it because your career is super important to you, and you have just not been as productive in the last year or month or couple of years or whatever it is, and you really want to get back to it and be able to put your all into your work, or your business, or maybe it's your family. You long for the days when you were able to spend all day at the park with your family, and you want to get back to that. Whatever your why is, hold on to that and remember it, and it'll help you stick to your plan. So, in summary, the reason your autoimmune symptoms are flaring: intestinal permeability and inflammation. Those are two of the keys. But luckily, of course, we can take steps to reduce inflammation and support our immune systems, and reducing our autoimmune systems and having more energy. We can do this every day through our diet, lifestyle, and mindset choices that we make all the time. The plan, nutrition, the 3 pillars of the plan are nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. In nutrition, we remove anti-inflammatory foods, add in the gut repairing and, removing inflammatory foods, adding in the gut repairing and anti-inflammatory foods. And then lifestyle, we're going to move your body for 30 minutes a day doing something you enjoy. And also keeping in mind the 5-minute stress busting strategy. So when you're noticing yourself in that place of stress, positioning yourself in the present. And in the mindset, you have to believe it in order to see it. So working every day to build that mindset muscle, that muscle of belief. So I hope that, or one thing I want to mention is that, following this plan, especially if you're currently following or eating a kind of standard North American diet, you will be able to see improvements in your symptoms and energy in 3 weeks. But do keep in mind that the first week or so might be a bit of a bumpy ride. But after that, you should start to feel better. Now, I know from my own experience, and you've probably experienced it too, that it can sometimes be overwhelming to make these changes. And it can be frustrating and confusing to try to navigate the whole thing and figure out exactly what plan is going to work for you as an individual. And this is why I do what I do. And I love what I do, by the way. I work with people to support them, work with them in finding their way to autoimmune wellness and find the plan that is going to work best for them and support their autoimmunity. And so I highly recommend that if you are finding it challenging to get started on a plan like this, or if you're finding it challenging to figure out exactly what you should be doing for your body, or if you're finding it challenging to stick with the program that you're trying to follow, working with a health coach or practitioner of some kind can be hugely beneficial. I highly recommend it. It could be me or it could be someone else, but the expertise and support, especially with working with someone who's been where you are and who understands it and really gets it, it can make all the difference in helping you reach your goals. So with that said, I recently launched Thriving with AI. It's a 90-day program to finding your path to autoimmune wellness. It's based on the 3 pillars that I outlined in this webinar: nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset. And with extra things beyond like what we've talked about in this webinar, but also it helps to identify which foods in your current diet are not supporting you and replacing them with foods that will support you, and doing it in a very individualized way. We work on meal planning. So I'll help you devise your first meal plan, or I'll devise your first meal plan with you based on your new nutrition protocol. And I'll give you some recipes to start. But then I also work with you to give you the tools to build those meal plans yourself, because it needs to be sustainable for you, and you want to get to a place where you're not relying on someone else, where you can do it for yourself. And that's really the goal here. And also to that same end, I work with you to prepare for and navigate through those challenging times, because those times do come up. For example, maybe the holiday season, right? And then also in the mindset area, something that's important that I didn't really talk about in this webinar is mastering the art of listening to your body, so that you can really you can learn to hear it and honor what your body's telling you, and give it what it needs to come back into balance. And as you can see here, all of the things that are included. So we start with a 90-minute intensive session to come up with a plan that is right for you. And then it includes 8 follow-up sessions. And this is all usually by Skype, to help you navigate as you're going through and help refine the program. It's a very individualized program, and that means that we need to refine it as we go to make sure that it's meeting your health goals and is working for your lifestyle. Because if it's not going to work for your lifestyle, then it's not going to work at all. And also, one of the really important things is having unlimited email support between visits, so that you are never alone in this, that you always have support as you're going. And the regular investment for this program is $9.99 US. But I'm excited that the exclusive offer for those of you who are on the webinar and watching the webinar after is $697, and so you're saving $300 when you register by December 22nd. And right now, what I'm doing is pre-registering for January. So if you register before the 22nd, we start in January, and you save that $300. Now, this is for you if you are confused and overwhelmed by all the conflicting information out there, because I know that I was when I was first getting going those years ago, and that's why I've designed this to really help you if that's how you're feeling. It's for you if you want a customized, holistic approach to managing your autoimmune condition. This is not a one-size-fits-all, and this will help you if you've tried that and that hasn't worked. This is for you if you are ready to make changes to your diet and lifestyle in order to achieve balance and wellness. Because what you're doing, if you're having flares, then what you're doing right now obviously isn't working. So we need to make changes in order to see results. And it's for you if you're willing to go outside of your comfort zone and try new things that you haven't tried before. Now, this is not for you if you're looking for a quick fix. This is about making changes that are sustainable, because that's what's going to support your immune system in the long run. This is not for you if you're not ready to examine those aspects of your diet and lifestyle that might be contributing to your symptoms. And sometimes that can be uncomfortable. You might have habits that you aren't ready to look at, and that's fine. And when you are ready to do that, then this program is here for you. But if you're not ready to do that work, then now's not the time. It's also not for you if you're not willing to invest your time, money, and energy in your wellness. So there's the investment in the program, but then there's also, you're going to need to to be investing your time, your money, and your energy into doing those things and establishing those new habits to support your gut repair, to help reduce your inflammation, and to support the balance, the rebalancing of your immune system. So if this sounds like you, then we should talk. And I am going to send an email out right after this with a link so you can schedule a time to chat with me and we can see if this program is the right fit for you. You can also find that link on the website. In fact, maybe I can type it into the chat. So I'm going to ask you to bear with me for a minute here while I get that. Maybe what I'll do is, you know what, I'll do that after. Yeah, I'll do that at the end. So let me go back into this for a second here. And yes, so just make sure that you sign up for a chat and we can talk and see if it's the right fit. And then you can, as long as you sign up before December 22nd, then you'll save that $300. And I'd love to see you do that. Great. So I just also wanted to share this with you. So this is Susan, and she's a recent client of mine, and she had just incredible success in the program. She has rheumatoid arthritis, and you can see that she says, before working with Vanessa, I had been experiencing joint pain throughout my body and fatigue for several years. And she had done quite a bit on her own already. She had removed dairy, she had removed gluten, and those changes helped her quite a bit. They got her to a certain level, but she was still experiencing pain and she was still experiencing a lot of fatigue. And so even though she was following what most people would look at and say is a healthy diet, she was still having these symptoms. And so we really took a good look at what her habits were, and we, through working together, we discovered exactly those foods that were triggers for her. So we did that. We worked a lot on in the area of stress reduction, stress management with Susan. And helping to, as she says something there about quieting her busy mind, which also had a huge impact. And at the end of it, she had dramatic results where she would have many days without any pain. She had a lot more energy, and I should say many days without pain because those days when she did have pain is when she and she would tell you this herself, when she would choose to eat one of those foods that she knew wasn't the best thing for her body, but she would make that decision very consciously and very mindfully. And that's also something that I talk a lot about with my clients. So there you have it. There's an example of someone who's had a great deal of success, and this is exactly the kind of thing that my clients experience, and I hope that you can experience that too. Now, did anybody have any questions? And while you're typing questions, what I'll do is I'm going to come out of share screen, and then I can pop those links into the chat. So if you'll just bear with me. So first I'm going to give you the link to my website. So there's the link to my website, and I'm also going to give you the link to my page where you can schedule a time to chat with me. And for those of you watching the replay, I'll have these links just below the replay as well. Oh, thank you. Thanks for the comments. No question, but really very informative. Good, that was my goal. Okay, so maybe there are no questions. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for joining me here on my very first webinar on how to reduce your AI symptoms and have more energy in 3 weeks. And again, if you're at all considering wanting to work with a coach, if you want to connect with me and talk with me about the program and find out more about it and find out if it's for you, then I definitely encourage you to sign up and schedule a call with me sooner rather than later to make sure that you can take advantage of that $300 savings. Oh, I think, let me see. So I have a question here, and Meg is asking, thank you, helpful, especially the 5-minute strategy. Great, I'm so glad you found that helpful. And do you work with people without an autoimmune condition? I have chronic inflammation, but not an AI condition. Yes, absolutely. So this is definitely something that I have done, and there are so many connections between general chronic inflammation and also different inflammatory conditions and autoimmunity. In fact, a lot of people believe that there are similar mechanisms going on. So definitely it's something that we can do. So again, if you're interested in exploring that further, just schedule a time to chat and we'll do that right away. And also on my website, you can find other ways of getting in touch with me. I'll also send out the replay so you can reply to my email if you have any further questions. Right. So if nobody has any other questions, then I'm going to say thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful December. Stay warm. And I'll see you later. Bye for now.